Simple question, really. Do you believe in the value of entrepreneurship education? Do you believe that we're making a difference? Do you believe that you should have the right to actually develop curriculums that make a difference in your communities and in the lives of your students? You know, increasingly it seems to be getting harder and harder. Forces of standardisation which are coming in, rules and regulations, faculties and schools like business schools that want to take ownership of entrepreneurship. I think it's time that we actually stood up. I think it's time that we became bolder as educators, that we actually united universally across the globe to take control of our own destinies, rather than having these little wars that play out at our own institutions in terms of what is legitimate and what isn't legitimate in terms of educational practice, in terms of the needs of our students, and in terms of the positioning of our programs in our universities. I'm making this call not just for myself personally, because I know that a lot of other people around the globe experience the misunderstanding of what it actually is we're trying to do as enterprise or entrepreneurship educators. We've got these guys up here, these students, and the one thing that I know is that we really care about the outcomes for these students. We want to make a difference in their lives, and we want to prepare them to be able to make a difference in other people's lives. Down here is us, we're the educators, and we're getting squeezed because your practices are not always legitimate. Your practices are not always taken as important as they should. I think it's time that we found a way to become a stronger voice for our students, and to do that, all of us guys out there, we've got to get together. We've got to become a voice. We've got to actually become a part of creating our own legitimacy at a global level, so that it can actually permeate its way down to the local levels where we all operate. But I think there's some other people that we need to bring into this game. I think there's some other people that need to be at the table when we're having this discussion on how we actually create our legitimacy. I think these guys, these entrepreneurs, they have to be there. For us to actually gain the recognition, the way that engineers and the way that medical programs have, it's because they've got this industry support, they've got this accreditation, all right? And I think we need to bring these entrepreneurs in so that they can actually be a part of our process. Some of them are already our students, all right? And some of them are our past students. But the key thing is we've got to have them at the table. And the other people that need to be at the table is these guys down here. We need to make sure we've got the policy makers in there too. They need to understand what can and what can't be done in the field of entrepreneurship education. They need to actually understand what their initiatives can bring about and what their expectations should be. So where do we start? Well, I think the first thing we start is that if we accept that it's very, very difficult for us to actually identify what's best practice, because that's what's being forced upon us. Increasingly, people are trying to say we should identify what's best practice in enterprise education, and we should actually bring that in, and you can do that. As opposed to them understanding who you are as an educator, what your understanding of your students is, and trying to actually capture the essence of what enterprise education means on your turf. What we need to do is we need to actually make sure that we play the game at a high level. If we can find a global agreement on a philosophy of entrepreneurship education, what is the approach of enterprise education about and what is it trying to achieve, I think we can find a consensus at that level. If we actually have a philosophy of enterprise education that we can gain a consensus around, then we can actually find a way of accrediting practice at a local level which is consistent with the philosophy, but nevertheless enacted in different ways at the local level. My challenge to you is to click on the button, the one just down here, that actually says register your interest. I'd like us to come together as a collective group and for us to determine our future, for us to determine what is a legitimate practice in entrepreneurship education, and for us to take control of this space and to actually provide a form of accreditation where we as educators and our programs can be given a tick from a global body, a body that we don't necessarily totally drive, but we share with our students, with the entrepreneurs, with our fellow educators, and with the policy makers who matter and have a great influence over the role and the running of institutions. So, are you going to watch this thing unfold, or do you want to join us and be part? Be bold, not told.